Okay, have a motion for the minute, to approve the minutes of the September 6th meeting.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. You abstained, okay. Old business, there is none. Let's move on to new business. The first item on here is the zoning map amendment application for 208 Hummel Street. Take it away, staff.
If the applicant's
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, the applicant come up here and let's get their name.
So the applicant is seeking an amendment to the official zoning map in order to change the parcel zoning designation from residential medium density zone to the commercial neighborhood zone. Property at 208 Hummel Street is a .10 acre lot featuring a 3-story, 2,187 square foot structure, which was constructed circa 1900. The property is bounded by properties at 1221 to 1233 Mulberry Street to the north, Hummel Street to the east, the property at 210 Hummel Street to the south, and the properties at 201 and 203 Nectarine Street to the west. This detached structure features elements of the Second Empire architectural style. Character-defining features include the painted brick facade, the masonry water table, and coins running along the corners of the building, the prominent decorative entryway, the Juliet balcony with decorative metal railing above the main entrance, the substantial wooden cornice with brackets, the cantilever deck on the rear of the second floor, and the large mansard roof with dormers on all 4 elevations. The main entryway features a wooden paneled door topped with an arched stained glass transom featuring the property address and set within an arched masonry frame. It is accessed by concrete stairs with decorative metal railings. The rear entrance features a solid wooden door set in a simple frame and topped with a simple transom. Fenestration also includes windows primarily in a 2/2 pane configuration, including 16 wooden windows around the main structure. There are 5 1/1 windows on the rear addition, which feature both wood and vinyl material. There are 4 third-floor dormers, which feature simple wooden frames and pediments. The structure features a large mansard roof with real slate shingles and is topped with a flat rubber roof. The property features a grass yard with a deteriorated brick walkway enclosed by a short metal fence along the front property line, with an informal gravel driveway and parking area in the rear yard. There is a deteriorated utilitarian garage structure in the rear of the property, featuring approximately 5 bays. As a detached structure with a sizable yard, the property differs significantly from the residential row home character of the surrounding community. However, the building does reflect the Second Empire architecture of the nearby properties and retains a significant amount of its original integrity, and thus contributes significantly to the architectural and historic character of the streetscape and neighborhood. Planning Bureau staff recommends the request be approved for the following reasons. The subject property is adjacent to properties in a corridor located in the commercial neighborhood zoning district, meaning that uses permitted by the new zoning district would not be contrary to the character of the neighborhood and would include those which could otherwise be established in adjacent properties. The applicant has sought approval to establish the proposed use via the zoning relief process and was denied by the zoning hearing board, which recommended that the applicant pursue the current application. Thus, they have pursued alternative means of securing the relief necessary to establish the proposed use. The proposed rezoning would allow the applicant to occupy the subject property, expanding their ability to continue providing housing and programming to the surrounding community at a time when such services are in increasing demand. Finally, the applicant's organization has existed in the community for over 30 years, and its focus is on the immediate neighborhood. Thus, it is reasonable to assume that they will occupy the site for the foreseeable future and will not be likely to vacate the property to establish a use which would otherwise not be permitted by the existing RM zoning designation.
Jeff, I don't want to make a big deal about it, but can you provide me like an explanation as to why the zoning hearing board?
The zoning hearing board stated that they felt the specifics of the property did not justify the request for a variance, which was required to establish the office use that the applicants are proposing. And I don't think off the top of my head provided much beyond that as a reasoning. It may show up in the zoning hearing board decision what more they were thinking as along those lines, but that was their stated reason.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty straightforward. All right. Applicant, you heard the report. Anything you want to add to that? Or any comments?
No, Mr. Chairman, just so you know, I mean, we did appeal the zoning hearing board decision, but
I think you all understand that under the criteria, the variance criteria, you have to build a certain amount of a record in front of the zoning hearing board. And so I think, if we had the opportunity, again, I think we would have an opportunity to do that, particularly in front of the Court of Common Pleas. That having been said, and Jeff should take a little more credit, his advice was, why don't you look at changing the zoning for the building? Because it is an extraordinarily large building for that neighborhood.
Yeah.
The expense to turn that back into a single residence is extraordinary, and we would have testimony to that effect if we had the opportunity again. So, we've stayed the appeal, so there's no expense for that at this point. We're pursuing the zoning amendment, and again, it is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I agree. All right, before we turn it over to the public, any comments from the board here? Let's start with Ann.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I was surprised to see you coming back here. Now I understand a little bit more why. At least there are other ways to go about formalizing the use of this property, and I think formalizing it to a commercial designation makes perfect sense. So I have no issues or concerns with this.
Jamie?
No questions, no concerns.
DJ?
No questions.
You okay to move, Joe?
No questions or concerns.
All right. Anybody from the public have a comment or questions or anything? All right. Okay, get a motion on the,
Motion to approve.
anybody second it?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passed. Motion approved.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move on to the second one, the variance and special exception application for 1500 Paxton Street. Jeff, before you get started, we have a new member of the staff here tonight. You want to introduce him to us all?
Sure. This is Matt Breach. He's our new deputy planning director. He started on Monday, so this is his first formal meeting. He'll be taking over things starting in January. May or may not be in attendance, but I'm looking forward to handing out the duties to him, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, well, I want to keep this brief.
So do
I'm very happy to be here, and I look forward to working with all of you going forward and serving this commission as best I can.
Thank you, Mac.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, Jeffy, take it away.
Okay, the applicant, this is for 1500 Paxton Street. The applicant is proposing to increase the non-conforming height of the existing off-premise sign and to install an LED sign face on one side. The height of the proposed billboard will be increased from 67 feet above grade to 75 feet above grade per section 7-325, 14A5 of the zoning code. Billboard shall be a maximum of 40 feet above the average surrounding ground level, unless approval of a special exception is required for this aspect of the proposal. Additionally, the applicant is proposing to replace an existing signage face with an electronic changeable message board utilizing LED technology. For section 7-325, 14A6 of the zoning code, an off-premise sign may have direct or indirect lighting, but internal illumination and electronically changing signage is prohibited, and thus approval of a variance is required. The project site is actually comprised of two parcels totaling approximately 3.92 acres. Primary parcel, 1500 Paxton Street, features a 4-story, 42,700 square foot office building which was constructed in 1930, and a 2-story, 12,000 square foot warehouse which was constructed in 1991. And the accessory parcel features 2 surface parking lots for the building, one of which is accessed by Paxton Street and features landscaping, and the other which is accessed by South 16th Street and features a 6-foot-high chain link fence topped with barbed wire. Project site is bounded by the Norfolk Southern Railroad and the property at 802 South 16th Street to the north, South 16th Street and Interstate 83 to the east, Paxton Street to the south, and an unaddressed parcel featuring a surface parking lot to the west. This detached structure features elements of the Art Moderne architectural style. Character-defining features include the brick facade, the concrete water table around the base of the structure, a modern 1-story addition on the eastern end of the building, brick columns topped with concrete adornments, the wide windows in a regular fenestration pattern, the 1-story addition in the rear with a Cordier Auctions wall sign and channel letters, and the large concrete sign along the roof line featuring the Harrisburg Gas Company. The main entrance is located in a modern addition on the eastern end of the building and features full view metal double doors set beneath a simple plate glass transom providing access to a glass vestibule with floor to ceiling windows. Fenestration also includes triple windows with plate glass windows flanking divided light windows on 3 of the primary building facades. There are other windows in a variety of sizes, shapes, and configurations in the primary and accessory structures. There are several freestanding signs along Paxton Street, including a smaller wooden one on the western end and a larger and taller metal one on the eastern end near the main entrance. The buildings on site are surrounded by large expanses of surface parking lots, which are secured by 6-foot-high chain link fences topped with barbed wire. The stretch of Paxton Street between Interstate 83 and Cameron Street features several large 1- and 2-story buildings, which primarily accommodate auto-oriented uses. Although it has similarities to other buildings in the corridor, the primary structure on site is older and exhibits more architectural integrity and value, and thus provides a unique contribution to the character of the streetscape. The Planning Bureau staff recommends the request be approved with the following conditions. If the board approves the applicant's request as submitted, the applicant will be in conformance with rules and regulations set forth by the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation and receive approval from said entity subsequent to decision by the zoning hearing board. And the applicant will limit message transition to 1 transition per minute per recommendations from the billboard studies included by the Planning Bureau. And this is a callback to a similar project at 833 South 10th Street that proposed the replacement of a static billboard sign face with a LED sign face. In that case, the application was withdrawn by the applicant, so it didn't end up going before the zoning hearing board. Just to give a little background on that condition. The Planning Bureau staff recommends that the request be approved for the following reasons. The relief requested by the applicant is intended to offset the loss of 18 structures with 30 signage faces at various points along the stretch of Interstate 83 running through the city due to the highway widening project. Although the proposed sign will be slightly taller and closer to the highway than the existing sign, because the project does not represent the addition of another billboard on site or otherwise increase the number of size of signage faces, it represents the minimum change necessary to address the substantial loss of billboards to the proposed highway widening and associated condemnations. Finally, as the property is located in an industrial and auto-oriented corridor and will face a widened highway and railroad, its installation should not be detrimental to the general character of the neighborhood.
All right, thank you, Jeff. With the applicant, each of you state your name and tell us what entity you're representing here tonight.
Michael Adams, I'm with Lamar Advertising, Harrisburg. I'm the real estate manager.
Hi guys, I'm Andy Rebuck. I'm the Vice President General Manager of Lamar Advertising. We have offices at 308 South 10th Street in Lemoyne, PA.
And you heard the report from the staff, and you heard the conditions of the approval. Do you have any comments? Do you approve of those conditions?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, we're really happy to be here. I seriously, we have such respect and good relationships with the city of Harrisburg, whether the business people or the city folks, the government center. It's been a really wonderful experience. I want to stick to my notes if you don't mind. Brevity. We want to definitely highlight how appreciative we are for the support we get from the Planning Bureau staff tonight. But we also want to express a concern over the condition that messages transition once per minute. There are quite a few studies that were cited dating back to 2008, as recent as 2018, and they most likely were used to discern this stipulation. But I'd add for your consideration that since 2005, when the first digital sign was installed in our area adjacent to PA 581 and I-83, 2005. And also since the first digital signs were installed in Harrisburg adjacent to 2nd Street, the entrance to the city, and Cameron Street at the corner of Her Street in 2007. And also since 2010, when the digital sign adjacent to I-83, just south of 13th Street, that was recently taken by the buggers at PennDOT, through condemnation. All that time, guess what? Not one person, not one single person has ever called Lamar and said, oh, I had an accident because of that billboard. Not one newspaper article, and believe me, they would have loved to have written that article. Not one city of Harrisburg employee. I've talked to the mayor, I've talked to Chief Carter, I've talked to your chief of police, you name it. Not one person has ever come and said, those digital billboards, boy, they're changing every 5 and 6 seconds per the state law and per the law that was put up when they put up. I have kids. I have grandkids. I believe in safety. I love the fact that we're hands-free with our cell phones and we do everything we can. The state needs to widen that road. I know that. But they took 20 of our billboards and we're in harm's way. And that leads me to my last point. History is on our side. Digital billboards are safe. It's important to note that PennDOT allows the changing of messages every 5 seconds. Most local municipalities echo this timing. While some do have longer dwell times. But the fact that the majority of hold times, the message stays in place for a certain amount of time before it instantaneously changes copy, is ultimately almost always 6 to 8 seconds, is a strong testament to the safety and validity of such a number. On a related note, and also to consider, we rotate messages. 6 potential advertisers on a billboard. Our business people and our non-commercial speech people love to see their message come up. So that's why it's important to keep the message going so that they get the results that they want, that their cash registers ring and they can pay the taxes. At the same time, Lamar, and you guys know this, we love nonprofit entities. We go out of our way to make sure that we get the Red Cross and the Goodwill and the different charities in this organization on our digital signs. It can be difficult if we're restricted to 1-minute flips, because it's hard enough to get the advertisers that are paying the business people to ring their cash registers if we have to slow that change down. I want to finish up by thanking you all for taking a minute with me. The IA3 project is a kick in the rear end for Lamar. We'll never replace the number of billboards that PennDOT has taken with us, but we hope to replace it with this digital sign at the UGI property, if you will. And we also hope to be coming back in the near future with 2 other opportunities where we'd like to ask for your indulgence to allow us to go from 1 traditional face to 6 electronic messages. Again, bottom line, happy to be here. Really appreciate you guys listening to us tonight and taking the time to look at this. Thank you.
So you say that the widening of the 83 has taken 20 of your boards down?
Yeah, ultimately, it take about 20 faces from Lamar Advertising.
All right. And Jeffrey, you're saying that you're basing the 1 per minute on a billboard study? What's the nature of that study?
They're both academic studies, and as the applicant noted, they are from 2015 and 2018. I know we did significant research into that former application. I will admit that we didn't do research into any updated studies on that stuff, so there may be something that is, there may be new academic research that proves that something less is safer, and if there's a standard by which PennDOT usually applies, you know, we feel that would be okay as well. You know, ultimately, the safety is related to the drivers on the highway, and so not necessarily local roads. So if PennDOT feels that a lower standard or a more rapidly changing sign face is acceptable for drivers on their streets, the Planning Bureau would not be opposed to that. So it'd be great to see, I think, a formal statement or perhaps regulation from PennDOT that allows a more, that maybe speaks to whatever their threshold is for that, possibly ahead of the zoning hearing board. And if PennDOT, if the applicants are able to provide some, or if the planning bureau is able to find some information on those kinds of conditions, we'd be happy to apply those instead.
Okay. Well, Andy, this isn't your only LED board. What do you typically have on other busy? I mean, this is a busy house. Yeah, I understand that. So what do you typically have?
PennDOT allows 5 seconds by regulation. We typically find 8 seconds is a sweet spot for us, that we think that that's the right amount of time for a consumer to digest what's on there and potentially get the next ad as well. So Tara Township is 6 seconds, which is the neighbor on 83. Lemoyne is 6 seconds, 581.83.
All right.
Trying to think, that's kind of the beltway covered. Hamden Township is 12 seconds.
Yeah, I'm a slow reader, so I'm more along the lines of 15 to 20 seconds. I can't do anything in seconds. So why don't we turn this over to the commissioners here, and while we do so, I guess this is the condition we'll probably have to address before we get a motion. Start with you, Ann.
Yeah, I agreed, Sean. I think I would be amenable to revising that second condition if, we're adding something along the lines of a statement, a formal statement from PennDOT, something showing what, what their practices are, allowing, the rate of transitions on a billboard. I was going to ask what your other installations are currently operating at in other areas, so that's helpful to understand. So, yeah, I would be open to just getting some updated, feedback, regulatory feedback on that. I think beyond that, I really appreciated the different exhibits you provided of the new billboard and whatnot. I mean, it seems like your request is generally staying in line with the signage you had, with the exception of, changing the elevation. But I was curious, it's curious to me that in our zoning code, we have a maximum of 40 feet for the height. So I'm curious, did you happen to take a look at when you were preparing your exhibits, what would 40 feet put you at in regards to the elevation of that highway?
A lot of municipalities measure from the height of the roadway. So like in this case, we're 40 feet below the road.
Yeah.
And so the regulation will say, you're allowed 40 feet above the roadway, and that's plenty.
Yeah.
But when we're 40 feet below to start, then it just doesn't work. We also think we need a little wiggle room because the state's probably gonna make that road go up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It will have a curve to it. Yeah, no, you kind of answered my question. I was guesstimating that the elevation of the highway above ground level was probably 40 feet, so you literally would be in line with the pavement, which doesn't serve much good. So probably more of a comment to Planning Bureau. At some point, we might want to update our zoning code wording around this type of signage. We're also seeing more LED signs coming before us too. It's a wave of the future, right? Did I have any other questions? No, I don't think so. That's it. Thank you.
Jerry?
You throw a lot of numbers out there. What would you like to see for the transitions per minute?
8 seconds. As I said, that's typically what we shoot for, even if they allow 5 seconds.
PennDOT allows 5, would you like? That's it.
DJ?
I'm in agreement with Ann's statement. I also think it makes a lot of sense to allow an LED face if it's going to be replacing 18 structures. So,
Yeah.
Right.
Makes sense. Mr. Canamuccio?
I don't have any questions, but I note that I'm in agreement with what's been said about that second condition being lower to the PennDOT standard.
Yeah.
Okay. Public, does any public have anything to comment on? Just raise your hand if you want to make a comment. All right. Do I hear a motion? Or actually, before we go to motion, let's just talk about what we want that second condition to be.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so we would amend the second condition to,
8 seconds.
it could either be set at 8-second transition or
Or like a range.
No less than
change it
PennDOT.
to the per guidelines of PennDOT.
No less than guidelines. That's not, no more than.
More
More than the guidelines of Penland?
To comply with PennDOT guidelines.
Yeah, no more frequent than PennDOT guidelines or something to that effect.
Yeah, it covers our butt. All right. Yeah, I would agree with that. hear a motion?
Do you want me to state
Please.
the changes? I'll make a motion to approve with the conditions, amending condition 2 to state that the transitions will not exceed guidelines per PennDOT standards.
Second.
A motion, a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say aye. Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, the third item we have is a special exception application for 415 Schuylkill Street. The applicant would like to take a seat over here. Jeffrey, you can get started.
So for the applicant for 415 Schuylkill Street is proposing to construct a two-story building featuring a first floor coffee shop cafe and 2 units on the upper floor, and requiring relief from the off-street parking requirements. The proposed uses both require zoning hearing board approval of special exception applications per section 7-305.7 of the zoning code, and the project additionally requires zoning hearing board approval of a special exception application for relief from the off-street parking requirements outlined in section 7-327.6 of the zoning code. The project site is a vacant 0.09 acre parcel which features overgrown vegetation and some mature trees along the eastern and southern property lines. The project site is bounded by Schuylkill Street to the north. The property is at 417 Schuylkill Street and 2450 North 5th Street to the east. The property at 2432 North 5th Street to the south and Atlas Street to the west. The Planning Bureau staff recommends the request be approved with the following conditions. If granted the requested zoning relief, the applicant will submit the required land development plan application and receive approval from City Council. And as the applicant has not filed additional zoning relief requests related to aspects in the development standards, such as fences, landscape screening, and trees, they will ensure that all applicable considerations are reflected in the land development plan. Planning Bureau recommends that the applicant retain the existing mature trees along the side and rear property lines if possible. Planning Bureau staff recommends the request be approved for the following reasons. The applicant has demonstrated that they have met the burden for granting the zoning relief requests. The applicant has designed the building and site to maximize the potential of the site, including the space for the units and the inclusion of as much off-street parking as possible, while minimizing the amount of zoning relief necessary, as it will conform with all aspects of the development standards. The massing and setting of the proposed development will reflect the character of the surrounding neighborhood, which primarily features 1 and 2 unit residences constructed in the full width of their lots, and many of which are constructed to the front yard setback line. For city and county records, the property has been undeveloped since at least 2001. As such, the project will result in the improvement of a vacant and overgrown lot with housing units, which are a pressing need throughout the city, and a small business that will cater to the surrounding residents and workers, including employees of the nearby College Clinic Hospital and the Steel School. And finally, the project advances the purpose of the RM zoning district provided in Chapter 7-305.4C of the code, as it provides a development at medium densities that will not adversely affect the stability of the area and advances the community development objectives outlined in Chapter 7-301.27 of the zoning code.
Did you go through the conditions, Jeff?
Yep.
I missed them, I'm sorry. All right, Jeffrey, what would the off-street parking requirement be there?
I would believe it would be at least 10 parking spaces. It would be 1 for each of the units. And then the off-street parking for a coffee shop cafe is 1 per 200 square feet of gross floor area and 1 per employee. So our calculation was based on the floor area plus the presumption that there would be at least one employee on site.
All right, applicants, would you state your names?
My name is Juan Carlos Javier Antigua. I've been in the area for about 7 years, serving the community in multiple businesses.
What's your address, Javier?
I'm sorry, say again?
What is your address, please?
My living address is in Mechanicsburg, 920 Cypress Lane,
All right.
Mechanicsburg.
All right. And you're the property owner?
Yes, sir.
All right. And you're gonna develop the property?
Yes, sir.
All right. And who's with you?
I'm John Holmes. I'm with Integrated Consulting. I'm a licensed professional engineer. I do site design, do not do building design for architecture or that kind of thing. Before I speak further, I appreciate the input we've got from the planning department. It's been very helpful as we kind of sift through what we need to do here. I also add that before I became a township supervisor, I was on a zoning hearing board for 12 years, so I've seen a lot of
So you can relate.
applications come through. So I'll give you the old line I heard many times in that role from attorneys. Special exceptions, need a special or exception. If you meet the criteria, they're granted. So we plan to meet all the criteria. This is a corner lot that's vacant. We're finding off-street parking, including 188 parking space. Being a corner property, we have on-street parking around two sides of the property. We think it'll be a nice addition to the neighborhood. The anticipation is the people using the coffee shop might live or work in the area. There's a high potential that there may not be need for parking for customers coming in. Plus, there's a likelihood of people living upstairs. There's only going to be 2 units upstairs. They'll be working elsewhere, so the parking spaces behind the building will become available. We haven't, the applicant hasn't chosen to put a lot of professional effort into designing the building until they can find out if they can actually do it. So we don't have any renderings or floor plans, that sort of thing at this point in time, but we'll obviously do that when we go through the land development process. And we intend to meet all the criteria, zoning ordinance as well as subdivision land development.
All right, well, you're fortunate. Joe Walsberry, the chairman, he's the parking sticker. He might sneak by here. You saw the conditions. Do you have any problem with either of those conditions?
I believe so. Basically comply with the ordinances, I think is just what I heard, which is typical. Integrated Consulting has been doing this for a while. I've been doing it for 30 years, including municipal engineering, so we have a lot of experience. We like to dot the i's and cross the t's.
All right. Ms. Merrick?
Thank you, Sean. Yeah, I think, it's a good use being proposed for the neighborhood, the area. I do have a couple questions. I was confused about what these pictures are about, because this is a new building.
Yeah.
So what is this?
There was a suggestion that we provide renderings or something or other. So that's an existing coffee shop in actually nearby in the city of York.
Okay.
It has a similar concept. First floor coffee shop, upstairs residential units. It's downtown, it's on a corner property. So we schedule just again, I'll give a general gist of what we might anticipate the property develop into. It's obviously going to be a new building, so it won't look quite like that. But
Yeah.
that was the intent, just to kind of conceptualize what we're talking about. You have a concept plan as far as two-dimensional, provided by an engineer. And so this engineer went on the internet search and found some pictures of another coffee shop with upstairs dwelling units within the general proximity.
Okay. Yeah, I would presume with the land development plan, you'll hire, an architect, you'll have your engineer to actually show renderings and this full design of what your new building will be. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. My other question would be, if you've started to, or what sort of feedback and comments you're getting from the neighborhood about this new building construction and use.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity. So the first idea came out of the neighborhood, by the way. So we noticed as family business owners, business developer, we're trying to do something different. We're trying to do something that does not exist. If you notice, this could be the first coffee shop in the entire uptown in Harrisburg. There is not any other, for my research, there is not any other coffee shop existing in the entire uptown Harrisburg. So we will be more than happy to serve more than 5,000 based on the previous census community members, and serve more than 600 employees working in the commercial buildings in insurance buildings existing about in 5th Street and between 5th Street, 4th Street and 6th Street. And it's extremely familiar to me. That was my first business down the division in 6th Street. That's what I get here. I get straight up from Dominican Republic, straight up to division in 6th Street. Uptown is my very hometown in the United States. That's why we feel really familiar with the neighborhood, with the population. We'll be more than happy to serve if we have the opportunity to serve this area and the community in the great capital city of Harrisburg.
Yeah, as previously stated, we anticipate it'll be neighbors using the coffee shop. So getting back to the parking issue, it's not gonna be a destination location where you're driving in to pick up things. It'll be a convenient place for people to live nearby, work nearby to walk over and get a cup of coffee, a pastry or something like that.
Yeah. And are they being made aware that new building construction will be potentially occurring?
Yes, we
Is
know
there backup?
everybody, we notify everybody around. If I'm not
Talking to
wrong,
people about
Yeah, how did you notify them?
I'm sorry.
How did you notify them?
outside of what is.
And in personal way, I usually in the neighborhood, I usually interact with the people in the neighborhood. I work in the neighborhood. I work there, and most of my time I spend between Uptown and Midtown, and they are really familiar. I'm really familiar in the neighborhood. They know me. They know my family. We've been here for years doing business, and I believe it will be pretty interesting. We've had the opportunity.
Thank you, I don't have any other questions right now.
James,
I don't have any questions.
Ron?
No questions, just a comment. I think in general, it's a good use of the vacant land. Brings both a new business and additional housing to the city, so.
Mr. Canluccio?
And this is right around the corner from the library, right? Madeline Oline Memorial Library.
Yeah, it's part of it. Yes.
Yeah, okay. You might expect some readers to check out a book and then come.
Oh yeah. You will be more than welcome.
There's another lot there too. I don't have any questions.
Anybody from the community want to comment on this project? Seeing none, we get a motion?
I move to approve with the conditions as stated.
A second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good luck. All right, the fourth is a variance and special exception application for 1001 North 18th Street. The applicant can come up and take a seat.
Oh, boy.
That's what you already have in your package, just easier than
Okay.
flipping through.
All right, Jim, whenever you're ready, get going.
So the applicant is proposing to construct a 48-unit apartment building with a community center component, along with various site and access improvements, which requires zoning and hearing board approval of a special exception to establish a multifamily dwelling within the RM zoning district per section 7-305.7 of the zoning code, and zoning hearing board approval of a variance for relief from the maximum building width in section 7-307.3 of the zoning code, which limits building widths to no greater than 20% of the prevailing width of the block. Project site is comprised of 3 vacant parcels, 1001 North 18th Street, 1800 Bow Street, and an unaddressed parcel, totaling 1.03 acres, and featuring a regularly maintained grass lawn. There is no development currently on site aside from a fence along the eastern property lines and a small portion of the southern property line. Project site is bounded by Hurst Street to the north, Long Street and the property at 1815 Hurst Street to the east, Bow Street to the south, and North 18th Street to the west. The Planning Bureau staff recommends the request be approved with the following conditions. If granted the requested zoning relief, the applicant will submit the required land development plan application and receive approval from City Council And just to clarify, that would be a lot consolidation and land development plan. The applicant is required to receive a certificate of qualification pursuant to Chapter 12-101 of Title 12, Affordable Housing Certification, prior to recording the lot consolidation and land development plan with the Dauphin County Recorder of Deeds. The Planning Bureau recommends minor changes to the project site, including the relocation of the bike parking shelter to the northeast corner of the building near the parking lot building access, and the expansion of the dog park and community garden space to include more of the eastern frontage of the property. For example, a community garden could be planted between the parking area and Long Street, with the remainder reserved for a dog park. The Planning Bureau recommends that the applicant continue engaging with the public prior to the submission of a land development plan on potential site or building improvements that might enhance the value of the project to the surrounding neighborhood. And finally, the Planning Bureau recommends that the applicant coordinate with the city engineer on the prohibition of on-street parking along the Bow Street side of the project site to allow for easier access to the accessory parking. And that's largely because while the street is a two-way street, further east of this site on Bow Street, it definitely does get narrow, as it does in a lot of other neighborhood streets throughout Harrisburg, whether it's like Berry Hill Street or something like that, where it's nominally two-way, but parking on both sides definitely, makes it a pinch point. The applicant and the Planning Bureau staff recommends the request be approved for the following reasons. The applicant has demonstrated that they have met the burden for granting the zoning relief requests. If the conditions of the Planning Bureau are adopted, the site design will maximize the potential of the site, including the provision of sufficient off-street parking and community benefits requested by the surrounding public at previous meetings, while minimizing the amount of zoning relief necessary. Planning Commission and Zoning Hearing Board previously approved a proposal for a similar development in September of 2020, although the approval was automatically revoked per section 7-323.5H of the zoning code after a land development plan was filed, and the project design has been modified to be less intensive from that initial proposal. Finally, the development of affordable housing is a pressing concern throughout the city, and the size, configuration, and location of the project site makes it an ideal location for such a project.
All right. First of all, what was the name of the school that used to sit here?
Woodward School.
Woodward School. And I guess you touched on it already. I thought it was more recently than 2020 that we addressed this proposal.
I don't believe so. There was actually two in the past. There was one in 2017, I believe, and then one in 2020.
All right. And in terms of fee, what's the relief being sought? If you describe that, I apologize. I didn't catch it.
I'm trying to think. Maybe the applicants could confirm the full width of the building.
Yeah, it's 25 or 28.
As far as the allowable width?
No, well, what would be the width of the building along the north front, Beacon Street frontage? I don't know.
The maximum allowed is 24 feet, and the proposed is 58 feet.
Okay. All right, well, since we've already engaged, we did, state your name and your position with the applicant.
Sure, my name is Ash McCombie. I'm an attorney with McNeese, Wallace & Merrick, 100 Palm Street.
I can read about you guys in the newspapers. Who else we have here?
Yep, sure. Sitting to my right is Matt Witters with Eustace Engineering, the civil engineer on the project. Sitting in the audience are Amber Borelli with the applicant, Fernandez Realty, Affordable Homes LLC, and Latino Connection, and Martina Hedinimi with KMA Studios, the architect.
Okay, where's the applicant? Where's your business space?
In Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Okay. All right. Just to go over my question real quick again, the building is permitted 24 feet, the building is 50 some?
Yeah, so the size is based off of the average width of buildings on the street. And as you can see in the aerial that I handed out, these are row homes, very, very small and narrow lots. Whereas the property that we're talking about for a 48-unit senior affordable housing is a much larger lot. And to be able to accommodate the requirements for affordable housing and to make everything work, the building obviously needs to be a little bit larger. Although I'd note that it's going to be smaller than the school building that used to be on the property.
Boss. All right, what do you think of the conditions? Any comments concerning the conditions?
No, I think the conditions are fine. I think, Jeff recommended that we move the bike rack, recommended that we expand the dog park area. We'll certainly look into doing that, and continue to work with them through land development.
All right. Well, that's great. Most lawyers come here think they aren't doing their job unless they argue at least one of the conditions.
I'm used to conceding the majority of my time to Jeff, and then just come in and sweep it up.
All right. All right, Ann, any questions?
I do not believe I have any questions on this one.
Very well. Jay Ted.
I don't have any.
Deron?
The only question I have is, it says here that it's gonna be 100% affordable senior housing for not less than 10 years. So, after that 10 years, did you envision it still being restricted only to senior housing, or were there any future plans to change that?
Yeah, so the 10 years is based off of the grant funding, or the tax credit funding, excuse me. Do you want to comment any further?
Yeah, it's based on the grants that we've received or are working to receive for the project. However, our intention is to build affordable housing and maintain that affordable housing in the city and continue to sustain that.
Thank you.
Mr. Camuccio?
I don't think I have any questions, but just the development of affordable senior housing is a pressing concern, I know, for the city, so it's good.
All right.
I do have a question.
Go ahead, Jenny.
In the review, it states that the public was against having a community room that was open to the public. Is that correct?
Yeah, so thank you for bringing up the community outreach. There has been a significant amount, and we've made a lot of changes.
That's what I wanted to. Forgot.
I knew something was going wrong.
Yep, so early July, we had our initial meetings with the neighbors. End of July, we met with city officials and received some additional feedback, and I think some neighbors were present at that meeting as well. End of August, we met with another small group of neighbors to go over some of the plan specifics, which is where we set the height at 4 stories and made a couple other changes. One of those, I think, might be what you're referring to. At one point, there was a proposal for retail on the first floor, and so that retail was eliminated and made a community room instead. And then on 1010, the applicant and staff walked around, knocked on doors to make sure everybody was getting the word out.
But they're generally in agreement with the project. But what about the community room aspect? They did want it, or they did not want it, if it was open to the public? Wasn't quite sure.
Go ahead, yeah.
With the community room, it wasn't necessarily the community room that they were opposed to. It was the issue with increased traffic with any type of other community uses, the increase in traffic and the issues with parking there. So that's why when we first met, we had decided to remove the retail space from the first floor and just maintain a community room and then a food pantry for residents and things like that.
All right, any of the neighbors here tonight? Or anybody in the community want to comment on this project? That makes things easy for us. All right. We have a motion. I think it's Joe Camuccio's turn.
Yeah, sure. I was just looking to see if there were conditions. I move to approve with the stated conditions.
Anybody second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
All right, next up, we have special exception application for 174 North 15th Street. Is the applicant here? Yes. All right. Everyone just have a seat up here, please. Hi, Jeffrey.
Yes, so the applicant is proposing to construct a new place of worship use on site. The proposed use requires any hearing board approval of a special exception application per section 7-305.7 of the zoning code. Project site is comprised of 2 vacant parcels totaling 0.31 acres, which feature overgrown vegetation, debris from the former church on site, which was demolished in 2020, and some mature trees along the western property line. Project site is bounded by Shoup Street to the north, North 15th Street to the east, the Bomball Street to the south, and the property at 1443 Shoup Street to the west. The Planning Bureau staff recommends the request be approved with the following conditions. If granted requested zoning relief, the applicant will submit the required land development plan application and receive approval from City Council. As the applicant has not filed additional zoning relief requests related to aspects of the development standards, such as fences, landscape screening, and trees, they will ensure that all applicable considerations are reflected in the land development plan. And to provide a little bit more background on that, the reason we do that, even though it's a requirement anyway, is because they weren't shown in the site plan that's submitted, so we just want to make sure that the applicant's aware of that and that those aspects of the project will be added in the final land development plan. The applicant will ensure that bicycle parking is provided as required per section 7-327.3E of the zoning code. Planning Bureau would recommend that such parking be located near the main entrance and, if possible, sheltered. The applicant should redesign the project site to have one-way traffic flow from Bomball Street to Shoup Street, with parking provided only on the western half of the site, allowing the eastern portion of the property and primary frontage to be engaged with buildings and active uses. And finally, the Planning Bureau recommends that the applicant consider the incorporation and reuse of building components left on site after demolition, such as the cornerstone of the building previously on site. Planning Bureau staff recommends that the request be approved for the following reasons. The applicant has demonstrated that they have met the burden for granting the zoning relief requests. If the conditions of the Planning Bureau are adopted, the site design will maximize the potential of the site, including the provision of as much off-street parking as possible, and designing the primary frontage with active uses while minimizing the amount of zoning relief necessary. The project will reestablish a place of worship use on site that was previously on site, and which, according to the Planning Bureau's knowledge, create no adverse impacts for the surrounding neighborhood. And finally, the project advances the purpose of the RM zoning district provided in Chapter 7-305.4C of the code, as it provides a development at medium densities that will not adversely affect the stability of the area, and advances the community development objectives outlined in Chapter 7-301.27 of the zoning code.
All right, Jeffrey, the former building was also a church, correct?
That's correct.
And what happened to it?
I don't know at what point it lost its occupancy or the congregation was no longer attending services there. But I know that at one point the middle collapsed. You could kind of see right through it from North 15th Street. I think it became a public safety and welfare issue, and it was at that point demolished.
All right. And on that site, it looks like the adjoining property is under a lot of construction. There's a fence around it and boarded up. What's going on there?
So that is related to a land development that was approved in, I want to say 2021, that came through both zoning relief and land development processes for 50 units spread across 5 different parcels, one of which was this initially supposed to be this subject parcel in a combination of townhome and apartment units.
TLC?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. It looks like they're getting started. Is it?
Yep.
All right. The applicant introduce himself, please.
Certainly. I'm John Melham. I'm president of Melham Associates, PC. We've been in Harrisburg since 1985. I'm a licensed professional landscape architect.
Okay. I apologize. I thought you were the reverend. That's
No, my life hasn't been that same.
I know that feeling.
Although we've represented a lot of churches.
Okay.
And mosques. And synagogues. And temples.
And you heard the conditions. Do you have any problem with the conditions?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I want to thank personally Mr. Knight for his help in getting these excuse me, I didn't have dinner. These 3 things projects on the agenda for tonight. So it was, various things happened and everybody had to run and get things done quickly. And I also want to personally commend him for his thoughts on the design of this particular layout. Thank you.
John,
Lastly, I'm happy to see you get some help up there.
It's
We
good.
all are, yeah.
All right, Ms. Merrick.
Thank you. I'm in favor generally of the proposed use here for the site, especially understanding that there was previously a church here. And I'll look forward to seeing the land development plans, because it doesn't look like any relief requests are being made or variances at all on the site. Is that?
We
Or maybe
did.
we'll see that.
Excuse me.
Maybe we'll see that in the land development plans.
Following this meeting, if I may address that, we are proceeding on to the zoning hearing board. We have put in a request, besides the special exception for the use of the property as a church. We've also, we will request a waiver from the, or a variance of the off-street parking. We put that in there, just, we thought it was a good idea. The parking we have on the site right now is sufficient for the church's needs, but like any church, and we work for many of them, they all aspire to grow. So at some point, considering where it is, and I welcome Mr. Knight's comments if he has any on this, we thought it'd be a good idea to request a variance from the off-street parking requirements. Your requirements for churches, as you very well know, require one space for 4 congregants or 4 pew spaces, however you want to slice it. And in some situations that really isn't necessary, you know. So on that basis, I think we're going to request that variance be considered by the zoning hearing board.
Okay. Thank you. My other question, and I mean, I think these were just being provided as, you know, general visual aid. I mean, we're really just focused on the special exception tonight, but I did notice that there are 2 very different plans that were included in our packet for this application, like
That
2
might
very
be-
different proposed site plans.
No, that might be we did change it. We designed it, and then in private conversations with
Yeah.
Mr. Knight, we made a change. So if my office mistakenly gave you 2 versions,
Yeah.
the one I have, the one that it should be is just as Mr. Knight discussed, and that is the parking entered from Lombard Street.
Oh, I don't even have that one.
Yeah, I hadn't
We don't even have that
gotten
one.
to the most recent one. I recognized that after I sent out the,
Okay.
after I provided that.
Forgive me.
No, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily your fault.
Yeah.
It
No,
was just an
no.
observation that I made, and really it's gonna come into play for land development.
Yeah, the large scale
I thought you
plan.
folks had gotten that. So
Yeah.
there you go, gang.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
All
and then
right.
that reflect, well, okay, but that,
that's
you,
still different from what.
That
that was
largely reflects
condition
this.
about,
Well, yeah, by the time I had gotten the packets together, like, and distributed to you guys, like, this had occurred through some back and forth with myself and the applicant. So what you have in your application, what you have in your packets, the large one was the first one that was submitted, and then there was a revised one that you got, and then I distributed the packets, and then the applicant provided, submitted this final design. So what you have in your packets is not the final design, but that's why my recommendation references basically that style.
Okay.
Okay.
so, okay.
And it was mainly due to the logistics of getting out the packets in the manner that I did, not necessarily anything that the applicant did.
I retract my former compliment to you.
Okay. I'm just thinking about then the conditions that are noted. Well, we don't have that plan, so I mean, because one of the conditions talks about changing to one-way traffic flow, which that plan does reflect, but the ones
Correct.
in here do not. So I would imagine we would want to keep the conditions as is, since we're not seeing that. But
mean,
then maybe
the conditions-
advise the applicant to provide the updated drawings.
And I believe they have, I
Yep.
just wasn't able to get it into your packets
Right.
fast enough. So. Again, that was an error on the planning bureau's behalf to not get that to you guys.
I guess we would keep this name and then we'll zoning and works.
Okay.
And then they go with the condition. It was already, it's essentially meeting the condition.
Right.
And that's not, yeah, I just.
I think if you want to modify the condition to say the applicant will construct the plan as presented at the planning commission meeting, that kind of keeps the condition, but references or recognizes that the applicant has addressed that comment.
That's a good suggestion. Okay.
Anything else?
My last question would just be about the surrounding neighbors in the neighborhood and how they're receiving this project, if you happen to have any information
I
on
have
that.
no knowledge of that.
Okay.
My clients, the pastor and Dr. Dickey,
Yeah.
husband and wife, both people of the cloth. I have to rely on them with their outreach in that neighborhood, and enough said from me.
Okay, thank you.
I've been to the site several times with them. I didn't notice any torchlight parades. So I'm sure that no one has a problem with it.
There are no, no neighbors on two sides of the building. That's what the next development's gonna be.
Right, because that's like.
All right, Ms. Green.
I have no questions.
DJ?
There's a reference in here to the intention to install sidewalk along 15th and Shoot, but that it's not going to be the same width as the previous sidewalk. So I guess I was going to ask you, Jeffrey, do you happen to know what was the previous width versus what's actually being proposed?
I mean, yeah, if you look at the site on Google Streets View, what it used to look like, it's pretty much a brick sidewalk running from the curb face to where the property line is. And this is, a consistent recommendation of the Planning Bureau. You saw it in the JMD Gardens ones that the Planning Commission reviewed earlier this year, where we usually recommend, retaining full width sidewalks especially if they previously existed. Our goal is obviously to ensure as much space as possible for pedestrians and not just the bare minimum, but also in recognition of the fact that as part of the development, the TLC development that's going on around it, there are curb bump outs at the corner of Bomball and 15th Street. And so there are going to be other pedestrian improvements. And so we kind of want to make sure that's in keeping with that.
Mr. Cannon,
Just for my own sort of education about how this works. So right now, what we're approving, or what we're being asked to approve is includes, because it even looks like that rendering has more parking spots than we see that, because I counted 17 there.
And I think it has an additional one or two, yes.
And so, and then there may be a variance requested at the next stage of this from the zoning.
Any relief from off-street parking would be a special exception, not a variance, but the applicant is. Yeah, and the applicant is providing enough parking per the zoning code, so one is not actually necessary.
Okay.
I believe they'd be required to have 15 total spaces per the section 7-327.6.
Thank you.
All right, anybody from the public want to comment? All right, and I think you understand the motion that needs to be made.
Let's see. I will make a motion to approve the application with the conditions noted, but amending.
Number 4.
No, is it just number 4? Because did he adjust his number 3 on there? It doesn't look like it. But number 4 definitely was addressed.
I mean, is bike parking on there?
No, but we have no problem with any,
Okay.
if I may, I know there's a motion on the floor, but we have no problem with the comments that I've heard here tonight.
Right. All right, so motion to approve with the conditions amending condition 4 to reflect the updated plans presented during the planning commission meeting.
That works. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you. Jeff, may I ask, would you like for your records, a copy of it? I have a small version of that.
I believe you sent me one via email.
Did we? Okay.
I'll take
Oh, I
any
did.
of these we had.
Someone
Yeah.
provided, yeah.
So that'll be sufficient.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a variance application for 1719 Market Street.
Mhm.
Get the applicant to take a seat here when it's available.
And that's.
Oh, okay.
Same age.
He did reference the company. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
All right, so the applicant is proposing to establish an accessory parking lot for the congregation of the church at 1710 Chestnut Street. While an accessory parking lot or structure is permitted by right in the R&R district per section 7-305.7 of the zoning code, per section 7-333.2A6 of the zoning code, an accessory use must be subordinate to the principal use or building and located on the same lot with such principal use. So the subject property is separated from the property at 1710 Chestnut Street by a alley, so they cannot be on the same property, and so the applicant needs to request a variance for that aspect of the property. I have a little bit more in the request there that I think was added incorrectly. The project site is a vacant 0.42 acre parcel, which features a grass and gravel lot enclosed by a 6-foot high chain link fence topped with barbed wire on the northern and southern property lines. An associated parcel at 19 South 17th Street is a 0.07 acre site featuring sitting areas shaded by pergolas and a gazebo and enclosed by a 6-foot high chain link fence topped with barbed wire. Subject property is bounded by Market Street to the north, the properties at 1725 Market Street and 1718 Zarker Street to the east, Zarker Street to the south, and the property is 1713 Market Street and a small grocer's alley to the west. The Planning Bureau staff recommends the request be approved with the following conditions. The applicant will remove the barbed wire from the existing fence, or if the project proposes new fencing, the applicant will ensure that no barbed, razor, or other security type fencing is installed. The applicant will coordinate with the city engineer's office on removal of the curb cut and driveway onto Market Street and reconstruction of the sidewalk on the Market Street frontage in accordance with the city's sidewalk ordinance and ADA regulations. The applicant will install the required landscape screening and trees on site, showing the site plan for the previously approved design from 2020, and will coordinate with the city arborist on the appropriate native vegetation to use for the proposed landscaping. Landscape screening will be permitted on the interior of existing or replacement fences. The applicant will coordinate with CRW on the installation of new stormwater management facilities and potentially green stormwater infrastructure on site. Approval of a building permit for the work will not be granted until formal approval from CRW has been received. And finally, the applicant will be permitted to lease spaces to surrounding residents and or businesses during times in which it is not normally used for church congregants. Planning Bureau staff recommends the request be approved for the following reasons. The applicant previously received approval for the proposed use in September 2020, although the approval was automatically revoked per section 7-323.5H of the zoning code, and the project design has been modified somewhat from the initial proposal, primarily through reconfiguration of the parking layout and the addition of a second vehicular access point. As the applicant notes in their narrative, the property had previously operated as an informal parking lot. As such, the proposal will formalize this configuration and ensure the property is designed to be in accordance with the current regulations of the zoning code. And finally, the proposal will redevelop a currently vacant site into something with more utility for the applicant and potentially the community, as well as a more attractive design with landscaping that will contribute to the aesthetic improvement of the Market Street corridor.
All right, Jeff, can you explain that automatic revocation to me?
So there's a section of the zoning code that basically says if neither a land development plan, which would be required, or which is not required for this, or a building permit application is not filed within 1 year of the zoning relief being received, zoning approval received, then the zoning approval is automatically revoked. And, you know, that's presumably in there to ensure that actions taken by the planning commission, the zoning hearing board are implemented in a timely manner. And so it's not something that somebody can come back 5 years later and say, you know, I have already have approval for this.
All right. Thank you. All right, Don, reintroduce yourself. You've heard the conditions. Any problems with them?
There was one condition I would like to read, please, Jeff, and that is one about when the parking is not being used by the church. What was that? Could you read that again?
Yes.
To read the procedure.
So it just says the applicant will be permitted to lease spaces to surrounding residents and or businesses during times in which it is not normally used for church congregation.
I see.
And I added that in there because I know the church itself is located directly adjacent to Recycle Bicycle, and I know in the past Recycle Bicycle had said the church allowed them to use their current on-site parking lot for like teaching kids bike riding, and in addition, there have been nearby zoning relief requests which were either denied or, after going through a part of the process, withdrawn along Market Street due to not having sufficient on-street parking. And it's resulted in the continued vacancy of some properties and parcels. And so, you know, having this parking lot be located, you know, in the midst of the block does allow for the productive reuse of some of the other properties in the neighborhood that might not otherwise be able to provide parking on site themselves.
Good point.
Having heard that, I have I take no issue with that. I think my client would want, the church would want, though, that if it's used by this, and you know more about this than I do, Jeff, so I'll go with your knowledge. My only thought is that the church would want, if there's going to be bicycle activities on this organized, would that be by someone who's in charge there? Right.
Yeah, I assume they have some sort of either standing agreement or just a verbal, agreement to permit that, because Recycle Bicycle doesn't have any
That's fine.
real surface parking themselves or anything, or any place to teach kids to ride safely. So that's why I think the church allows them to use the current parking lot.
That's fine, sure.
Ms. Merrick.
Thank you. I'm trying to wrap my head around a couple things, and I apologize if I'm just not following what they're trying to do here. So the accessory parking lot is on one lot, and then the proposed stormwater management for that lot is on a separate lot right now.
If I may, yes, that is correct.
Okay.
They own
Are
it.
you going to?
The church owns it, and you'll see on your plan there, you see that little Z, that Z?
Yeah.
What we'll be doing is we'll be joining those together, and also there's a little alley separating them, and we will vacate that alley.
Okay, that needs to be
We own both
submitted
sides.
to us as a vacation lot, right?
So I don't know whether the alley is a private alley or a public alley, so that will require some deed research. This issue came up again in the JMB Gardens issue, where there was a grocer's alley indicated in the city's or county's tax parcel map. But through research by that applicant, they determined it was a private alley, and in which case they do not need to vacate it. It can just be consolidated with the other properties. And the county's map shows a grocer's alley there, a right of way there, but again, I don't know if that's private or not.
Okay. And does
And
the applicant know?
I think that's the consensus of the feeling in my survey department, same sort of thing, that we own both sides of it, it's a private alley, we'll consolidate it. I shouldn't have said vacated.
Is that on the applicant's responsibility to confirm that it's a private alley?
Yeah, I would imagine it's up to the applicant to decide to do that, if they want to consolidate the parcels. And kind of another interesting wrinkle to this is the applicants actually did file and receive approval for a lot consolidation. The subject project site was initially 2 parcels. And now it's shown as one parcel on the county's tax parcel viewer,
Yes.
but it's not consolidated, with the smaller adjacent parcel fronting 17th Street. So I'm not exactly sure, I know it's a weird little, artifact of what was on these properties before. I just wanted to make sure that was, called out so that it was addressed appropriately by the applicant and the city if necessary.
Yeah, because the DEP, right, will not ultimately approve the stormwater management plan if it's not on the same lot as the construction pervious, so.
And that will obviously be the applicant's responsibility to make sure that is occurred, so that they are combined into a single parcel. However that may occur.
Okay, so I guess my only other question, is there any condition we need to add around that? Or is it really taken care of by the applicant and it's their responsibility?
I think the latter.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, again, it's weird that it seems that two parts of them were consolidated, but this last little parcel was left hanging, was for some reason left out of that, and maybe that's because of the right of way. But again, my guess is the county did not differentiate between a private and public right of way. Just based on my experience, is my guess what happened.
Okay, all right. That was my only source of confusion, really. It wasn't, change things.
There was a previous submission for this done by other people. And the reason the project, I'm told from our clients, the reason the project did not proceed on that basis was it was too expensive. And one of the things we did when we looked at this is to, obviously, the stormwater component is a major deal for even a house, building a house.
Yes.
And so we looked at it and, we can handle stormwater on just the parent piece itself. But with the advent or with the availability of this small piece, we could use, actually, we haven't designed it yet, but we could use an open basin there, which would reduce the cost considerably. So it's not essential, but it certainly is a big help to keep the costs down. So that's the reason it comes up now.
Sure, no, that makes
Okay.
a lot of sense. Yeah. It's just the mechanics of getting all of this situated legally, right?
Yeah. Ms. Reed.
I have nothing.
DJ?
Just one question. It doesn't look like it's the case, but I just wanted to confirm that the trees that are fronting Market Street, where the fencing currently is, will those be affected by this parking lot construction?
No, there's no tree. I'm trying to go by my memory. I don't think there's any trees inside that existing fence.
No, it's on the outside. I just wanted to confirm that they weren't going to be affected.
They may be affected by whatever the city wants us to do with the sidewalk and all. That I haven't looked that far into it, so I really can't address your question. I'd like to save trees wherever we can, obviously.
Right.
But we have I've got no ill wishes towards any tree. But having done this for so many years, there's some situations where the ordinance requires them to be taken out because that's the higher priority. Right.
And I don't think from the city's perspective, we want them to be removed unless the city arborist said they were an invasive species and they were dying anyway. I think the bigger issue is whether the applicants are gonna change the fence, and if they do, then we would absolutely have to take down the tree then. And, that's something we work with the applicant at that time, probably to replant, probably in the public right of way, do a tree well or something like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so so there is a second car entry point being made on Sarker Street, but one would be for entry, one would be for exit.
Exactly.
Thanks.
All right. Nobody from the public? We'll get a motion.
Motion approved with the conditions?
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you, all of you.
Jeffrey, the seventh, is the applicant here? Or? Oh, geez. Okay. Seventh, variance application for 2701 Industrial Road.
He's making his money tonight.
Yeah.
What did you say? What was that? What was that, Jeff?
So you're making money tonight.
That presumes I tow people from my and that presumes I pay for it.
Yeah.
Okay, the applicant is proposing to construct a 143-space commercial parking lot without the required landscape screening along the western property line, which requires zoning hearing board approval of a variance request. Per section 7-307.12C of the zoning code, a 3-foot-high landscape screening is required along the length of the lot line. The project site is a vacant 2.53-acre parcel, which features a maintained grassy area with a 4-foot-high chain link fence along the frontages with Industrial Road and the access drive to the adjacent hotel, as well as 2 small booths along the western property line. The project site is bounded by Wildwood Park Drive / Industrial Road to the north, the property at 920 Wildwood Park Drive to the south, and the property at 2998A Industrial Road to the west. The Planning Bureau staff recommends the request be denied for the following reasons. The applicant has not demonstrated that there are either conditions unique to the site which create a hardship, nor provided a compelling justification that the relief sought will mitigate the hardship. And requiring the applicant to conform to the standards of the zoning code will not impair the overall project or otherwise impose unreasonable burdens on the applicant. The proposed parking lot can otherwise be developed as proposed.
May I comment?
Yes, what do you have to say about this?
That's the first thing I've heard tonight that I ain't too pleased about. Has anyone gone down and taken a look at the history, as I understand here? Of course, there is existing screening along the railroad there. We're talking about that side of the property here. I think it was 2018. I was not part of this then, but anyway, it came before the planning commission and it came before it was granted. I think that relief was granted because of the existing conditions. And Borough Council agreed with that. I don't know if any of you folks go back, what is that?
Yeah.
You know, 5 years, 6 years? So I'm surprised, I'm honestly surprised to hear, because we don't casually request relief from landscaping, only in certain situations where it doesn't seem to be justified and the cost is just more than, there's not a cost benefit to it. And so I would just respectfully request that if you aren't familiar with this area, you just take a drive down and take a look at it. So we were, as far as I know, we're requesting relief from along our frontage there with the railroad. And you can see all those existing trees, which are significant and are substantial. And we're not touching any of those aren't on our property. So the point is, we wouldn't be screening anything except we'd be screening those existing trees. And it just seems to me to be a waste of money, with all due respect to staff.
The parking lot hasn't been constructed yet, right?
That's correct. And I would note that the initial design the initial proposal was a bit different because it was proposing a gravel parking lot and also to not have the lighting required for parking lots. I believe that the Planning Bureau at the time had opposed the proposal for a gravel parking lot largely because I don't know that it was a city engineer approved surface, and also because you can't line a gravel parking lot. Yeah. But I think to the applicant's point, I believe they were granted approval for that. But I think the justification was that it wouldn't be used as much. it would only be used like 3 or 4 times a year or something like that. But obviously, the current proposal is a bit more robust. It's recommending paving. It's going to be incorporated into the adjacent Staybridge suites that the property owner also owns, and will actually be tied into the western end of their parking lot. Whereas proposed, this was more of a standalone design, whereas previously proposed, it was more of a standalone design. And, you know, as the Planning Bureau noted in the case report, you know, the applicant needs to prove a hardship of why the property cannot be developed in this way. And really, there's no reason besides the applicant, you know, not wanting to pay to screen the parking lot. And, you know, we note that parking lot screening provides, it has purposes other than just to screen headlights. It's to, you know, beautify properties, especially something like a surface parking lot, but also to kind of establish the boundaries around a property. And so, you know, we feel that this is maybe kind of similar to why the zoning hearing board denied the 208 Hummel Street one, was basically they didn't really have a justification for why the property cannot be used or developed in conformance with the zoning code. And that's why we are recommending denial.
Okay, so it's a hardship situation. Would not be.
Was that gravel? Well, I remember that
remember the
vaguely.
If I may.
Was that approved as a temporary use?
Yes, if I may, and again, this was not part of our project then. The professional who did it is now part of our staff. That's Tony Trost. He's the director of our survey. As he's explained it to me, the Planning Commission had granted approval of the gravel parking. And granted approval, there were 3 things there. Lighting was one. They granted relief. They granted relief from paving because it was only going to be used for 2 or 3 or 4 times a year at most. And they were specific about those holidays or those events.
For the farm show.
And the third thing was, what was it? Trees. They had granted relief from the trees. My understanding from Mr. Trost is that it was Borough Council that said, no, we don't like the gravel parking. That's my understanding from 2018. In any case, Mr. Zaver is now fully prepared to pave it and line it and do a nice job doing it. I understand and I concur with Mr. Knight's comments that we're not claiming a hardship here. You can't claim hardship based on cost unless it's an extraordinary cost, and this certainly would not be that. It's just a matter of need, that's all. You know, but I'm not going to fight about it.
Without claiming a hardship, I don't know how we.
Yeah, because it's a variance, I mean, you have to meet that criteria. Is it possible to entertain this as accessory parking? So if this is being tied into, the intent, it's tying into a lot that has a assigned use. And this owner, they own both lots, both the existing hotel and then this new one.
Yes.
And the intent is to use this parking for additional use.
Those are good questions. The only use of this parking lot will be events with the farm show building. This hotel is not going to be expanded. It cannot expand. There's not a need for extra parking at this hotel that I'm aware of. It was basically to serve. Mr. Zaber has an agreement with the farm show complex for this lot, for those uses, and also another one that you're probably familiar with, which is off of McClay Street by the railway bridge there, and they use that as well, and they're happy to have that facility and this. He's simply upgrading this. He didn't. As I said, he's agreed to paving it, and that is a huge cost. He said, I'll do that. If they don't want a gravel parking lot, fine, we'll do it. So that's about all I can tell you.
questions in?
No.
Jamie?
No.
DJ?
Just to clarify, this denial is not for the project in and of itself, it's just for the landscaping exemption.
That's correct. It's basically a commercial parking lot because it's gonna be charging people to park there for the farm show,
Okay, got it.
which is permitted by right in the CG district.
Mr. Canavicchio?
And we're talking about, just to clarify, we're just talking about the western, the perimeter on the west. Thank you.
There's another consideration, I think. I don't know if it will ever happen, but the status of Industrial Road itself. To our knowledge, the only people that use it really is the railroad. And they don't really need it, so we wondered what the future status of that might be, whether it might be acquired by our client and expand this parking into that, so that's just a thought. It's all I have no definitive opinion as to whether that would ever happen, but it was one of the thoughts behind this, that at some point that might be acquired. Because right now he has to maintain it. They don't really maintain it. The railroad doesn't. They kind of rely on him. But as I say, whatever pleases the planning commission.
Clearly, there's nobody from the public here, so with that, do we have a motion?
I'm not sure how zoning hearing board is gonna proceed
Oh, yeah.
either, because it's, the variance and the variance requirements, and if there's no justification, I don't see zoning.
Yeah.
They're,
It's 2,800.
Well-
2,800 would make it for them.
Well, if I may, I'm sure the planning commission is well aware of the criteria that a zoning hearing board can use for that. And we certainly aren't trying to save cost. But if you go to the other criteria, which is, well, if we grant this relief, does this alter the surrounding enjoyment of the properties by their owners? We know those basic 5 or 6 criteria. I think we win on those. I don't see any real obstacle to that. So this is the request of our client based on the history of it, based on what was granted by the Planning Commission and Borough Council regarding the landscaping a few years ago. So that's why it's here before you tonight. Again, I don't want to make a big issue out of it. This is not a fight. This is not a battle here. It's simply a request for consideration. And if should you consider that and leave it to the zoning hearing board, well, then we'll decide, do we take it to the zoning hearing board and take our chances with it.
All right. Still waiting for a motion.
And I forgive my long time past my cocktail hour, folks. I'm absolutely cooking dry here, so.
Do you want my water?
No, thank you.
You're welcome to have
No,
some.
that's very kind of you.
They don't, they're not this generous, every meeting, so.
I thought Joe was gonna be here.
All right. Need a motion going once, twice.
I don't know,
I hate to do it denial, but also don't really have a good, they meet most of the criteria. Also,
Nothing in the middle either.
the
We are going to be landscaping in the parking lot itself, I'll tell you that. But that's up to you folks.
All right, well, without a motion, I guess the resolution fails.
I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I think you have to vote on
All right. We have a motion to deny it.
You can make the motion, John.
Yeah,
Have to
you-
be
that's
somebody
true.
else.
You can.
All right, I'm just sitting here.
Your question is, what
Yeah,
did you do?
Well, I'm just sitting here thinking, there's no, no median, there's no, nothing in between.
I know, I was trying to think of like, if I approved, what would be the offer, you know, the conditional offer, and I don't know.
All right, well, with much regret, I make a motion to deny.
Second.
All in favor of denying, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
It's true, you can oppose.
All right. Motion denied.
That's fine, thank you very much. Man, Jeff, I have a question. We have all these, we hang on to this, the zoning hearing board on these projects?
You can provide those to me and I'll make
Do
sure.
you want
those-
them now or do you want them?
Yeah, I'll take them now.
Will you? Okay.
Maybe I should have opposed it tonight.
Well, we won't be going to the zoning hearing board now on this one.
Oh, no, we're just a recommendation.
Huh?
Yeah,
Well, I know
they're
that, but
recommended.
we're just.
Yeah, I'll take
Keep
them.
them in the folder for you.
All right, thanks.
I mean, we're just, I mean, you can still go to zoning. We're just recommending. it.
Well, we'll see what we do.
They can argue.
Jeff, you got a report on the comprehensive plan?
Yeah, it still exists.
It still exists.
No, you know, now with having Mac here on board, I think, you know, as I've told you guys before, the real issue has been capacity. It's been, you know, one of my long-term goals has been to create GIS maps of each chapter. We just haven't been able to do that because we've had 2 vacancies pretty much up until now since we passed it. So I'm hoping now with more staff on, we'll be able to kind of turn to that and begin to develop those. And I would hope that we would be able to also maybe incorporate commentary on any project conformance with the comprehensive plan too. Maybe make some notes of goals, objective actions. You know, like we added the property photos section to the case reports in recent years, and we can maybe do a comprehensive plan, you know, component of the case reports too, to help make sure, I mean, it's staying an active part of the board, of planning commission's considerations. You know, it is certainly something we consider when we're reviewing projects, but to more explicitly note it in the documentation that we present and that is available to the public, I think would probably be a good idea.
So when you say GIS maps, are you talking about like story maps?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
All right, so a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Well, that was an easy motion.
Are you seconded that?
I
Okay. All right.
Let's do the game.
Yeah.
Oh, baseball.
National.
All right. Reach.